Hello, friends. Hi. We are here for the BodyTalk Booster Zoom, June edition. Very excited today. Vanessa is going to share about using orthopedic evaluation, kind of how to do it, why to do it, how it changes your client's perception of your practices, of your sessions. And it's a tool to be able to see what sometimes is hard to see because of just the nature of our work. So adding orthopedic evaluation is a way to make things visible that otherwise might just be subtle shifts in the body, and it really brings things to the fore. So I'm really excited that we're going to be talking about that today. And before we get into the material, and Vanessa's got a really cool slideshow and PowerPoint and the whole deal. Just a couple of quick announcements. The BRI. So today is June 20th. Yes. So the BRI is in just about 2.5 weeks. And so the BRI is a South African barbecue, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Bunch of people that you know from Zoom or from days of old. There's just a lot of familiar faces and faces that we've seen here in these small gatherings, or maybe you've just heard of their name and stuff. So there's a nice mix of people coming. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be in Vanessa's backyard. She's a party master. So if you have not already RSVP'd, just want to let you know to please email. I check the email, and Diana checks the email at contact@pnwbodytalk.com, and that's how you get the address, and then we get the RSVP so that Vanessa knows how many burgers to buy. So wanted to let you know about that. And you know what, Vanessa, I was going to double check before we started recording, but I forgot. So I'm going to just ask right now, do you have any information on the Module 6 class that's coming up? Has Volma decided yet?
I do. The dates are in, they're done. It's in August. It's the first week, and I'll tell you now, it is the 5th and 6th August, and then 12-13.
Okay. And is it again 7 in the morning to noon Pacific time?
Correct. Exactly the same as Mod 3, South African pricing, all the rest of it.
And are you offering your home for in-person? Did that work for Mod 3?
We didn't have anyone. I think it's because it's so early that people don't want it. It is early for people to get anywhere. So we didn't, but it was so that offer still stands for any of the courses. And if people do say we want to come, then I'm quite happy to do it. My husband's got the whole setup ready and whatever. So
okay. Right on. So Mod 6, first 2 weekends in August.
And then Mod 9's in October.
Okay. Oh, and I'm doing an access class online. Just so you know, July 19 and 20, it's July 20 and 21. It's the Thursday and Friday, 4 in the afternoon till 8 in the evening, 2 evenings online. So just, invite your peoples so we can all be tapping out our cortices. And should we do that before we start?
Yeah.
Why not? Let's tap out our cortices. It's one of these things that just works every time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, Vanessa,
see
your magic.
Okay. So I do want to start by saying that this information is courtesy of Curie D'Ambrosio. I haven't done Tracy's, but I picked some information from there, as well as I didn't put her name on there, but I did a fascia release with Dale Fox. So I did take a bit of information from there as well, but mainly it's from Curie D'Ambrosio's orthopedic evaluation course. Okay, so let's have a look what we're going to be. Oh, why doesn't it want to go? Okay, there we go. So let's have a look what we're going to be looking at. in this presentation. So what is fascia? Body armoring, why orthopedic evaluation, the benefits in session, and then simple orthopedic evaluations in sessions, and then Q&A at the end. Okay. So what is fascia? So our fascia, it gives its body its form. So every organ, endocrine, body part, blood vessel, muscle is covered, or fascia is a wrapping for it. So it's the connective tissue. It's a three-dimensional web. Everything is interconnected via the fascia. It's an integral part of every anatomical structure, right down to cellular level. And it creates a space for all of our nerves, blood vessels, lymph to pass through. The most fascinating thing about fascia, though, is it stores trauma and emotion. And because our fascia covers everything, that's where it's going to go first. So fascia will be involved every time that there is anything stored there, be it emotions, memories, phobias, trauma, fascia will be involved. So that's why we have a look at the fascia. So what is body armoring? So this term was first used by Wilhelm Reich, an Austrian-American psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. So he already, all the way back then in 1897 to 1957, he already believed that repressed negative emotions are stored in the muscles and create tension. We now, with BodyTalk, also know that they are stored in the organs, the endocrines, the body parts, but they first realized that it was stored in the muscles because tension would be created and thereby feed through into the fascia system. And that is why, you know, I've had clients that have got a little bit of extra weight on them. And a lot of the time, if you have to get into the belief systems, get into the stuff around the client, you'll find that there was no space for them to store anymore. So they built more. They built this wall. And so before you build a wall, we need to find out why. Before you break down the wall, we need to find out why it was there in the first place. So what does this tension do? It creates barriers to the movement of circulation, nerve conduction, and energy flow. That's when the body experiences pain, swelling, inflammation, slow healing, and as we know, can result in physical illness. So this is why when we do this orthopedic evaluation, you release the tension, and that's what you're now observing, is the tension that's being released from these massive pieces of connective tissue that interconnect the entire body. So let's have a look at why we would use orthopedic evaluation. You all know, so we all have clients. Some clients will come in with physical stuff, a headache, shoulder pain, leg pain, something that we can evaluate at the end of the session. But there are times when the clients come in and there's nothing physically wrong with them, but they've got all this emotional stress and trauma that they're trying to release. But physically, their body feels okay. So that's very difficult to ask them to assess it at the end of the session, because they're not going to, you know, they'll feel calmer at the end of the session, but it doesn't mean that you're going to see massive, that they could feel the same as they feel after a massage. You know, they could just feel more relaxed. But when we use orthopedic evaluation, because of the subtlety of what we do, you see immense differences in these very, very simple ones that I'm going to share with you. Okay. So firstly, I do just want to say that orthopedic evaluation is not intended to diagnose, but to create a baseline to show the change after a session. But that's not the only thing it does. It gives credibility to BodyTalk. I've seen it in my experience countless times in my session. The client's eyes go big like this after the session when these things shift and change that they weren't maybe expecting, but now they see that this is actually what's happening. It doesn't only give credibility to your clients, it builds your confidence in your intuition and your modality. And I did put modality there, not specifically BodyTalk, because I do know that there have been Reiki masters, there have been other people that do other modalities that have used orthopedic evaluation very successfully as well. So right now we're talking BodyTalk, but I just want I want you to know that it's even if it's any other modality, it would work there as well. It demonstrates the effect of body armoring that we just spoke about, and how all of the stress, emotional stuff, environmental factors can actually affect your physical health. And when I say physical health, you'll see in one of the next slides about posture. Posture is very reflective of what is going on inside the body. And that is also part of what Wilhelm Reich was saying, is just by looking at somebody, just by having a look at their physical appearance, you can pretty much tell what's going on the inside. And you'll see it in the first slide, I think it is, where I actually show you the different postures and what that is portraying. And this I've had my own experience with, invaluable when giving a public presentation or demonstration. So I used, I think it was the second one that I'm going to show you, or the third one, which was the arm raise. And I was doing a presentation in South Africa at one of the corporate companies, and I had somebody come up, and all I did was I did a bit of access. I did switching, I did SB, I did cortices, and SB is not access, but I did those three in the small little demo session I did. And the change that you saw just from those using orthopedic evaluation was crazy. It was mind-blowing to the public that were there. Okay, so let's have a look. When your client walks in to the room, this isn't something you need to stand there and ask them to stand like this, stand like, just pay attention, because the way that they are standing will give you some kind of an idea of where they are subconsciously and what is going on. If you have a look at that first one, that you can see that guy is pulling away from something. What in his life is he resisting? If you have a look at the other one, where he is, that's also protection. That's making myself look bigger than I am. That's pushing yourself out there, trying to make yourself seen. So pay attention to all of these. The third one is sort of a combination of the first two, of continuously having to back away and come forward. So if you start chatting to your client, you will find out that there's stuff in their lives that will represent what you are seeing in their posture. If you have a look at the fourth one, that forward head, that's somebody that person is generally that one who's always needing to feel validated and sticking their head out there to try and put themselves to come see my face. Can you see my face? So if you pay attention to all of these, and it doesn't mean that the guy with a good posture doesn't have any of the stuff on the left-hand side going on with him. Of course he does. He might just not present it in his posture. It could be in other parts of the fascia. So you don't necessarily, unless you want to tell your client that you're checking out their posture, but it's a nice one that's why I put this one first, because it's a nice one for the practitioner to see. But if the client knows that their posture is a bit off, because some people do, then you can do that and say, oh, I'm having a look. And you could, have a look at the shoulders, because a lot of people with a lot of responsibility, you'll find the one shoulder is higher than the other. So you could bring that to their awareness if you pick it up in the postural assessment. So this one is just what I put there because it's what I use. And I mindscape my clients before they arrive. So when it's even new clients, brand new clients who I haven't met here before, I'll mindscape them. And 9 times out of 10, they come in looking exactly like they did when I mindscape them, including their posture. So if you don't want to talk to your client about the posture and you just want to do the other 3 or one of the other 3 that I'm going to show you, mindscape them first. See how that posture looks in your mindscape. Then when they arrive, it'll give you an idea of, that'll already build your confidence in yourself when they arrive. Before you even start your session, your confidence is way up here, because as they walk in, you go, oh my God, my mindscape was perfect. So that's just the posture assessment there. This one, I love to use this one. This is my favorite one. I found pictures on the internet that are not exactly what they should be, but it was just to give you an idea. So with the straight leg raise, what I will do is I will first have the chat to my client, get them onto the bed. Once they're there, I'll first build the formula of whatever it is, whatever comes up. And then I will, before I do the implementation and tap out, I will go to ask them to relax completely. I will take 2 fingers right by the Achilles tendon, and without applying pressure, their legs are completely relaxed. You can feel the heaviness in those legs. Do the implementation tap out, go back, ask them to relax again, and do that same thing. This will blow your clients' minds. You put your fingers back underneath the Achilles, and I can promise you that leg, without you doing anything else, is going to fly up into the air, or at least be a lot markedly lighter than it was before. So this one works brilliantly every single time. Let's have a look. The straight arm raise. This one is a fantastic one for the clients with the straight leg raise. You are doing the lifting. They can feel you not putting any more pressure or using any more strength than you were to begin with. But this one, they feel it themselves. And you can use your hand as a resistance. But this is the same principle. Get the formula. This one, what I've done with this one sometimes, because they're lying down when you're getting the formula, you don't necessarily want them to sit up again. So this one, what I will sometimes do is, as they sit on the bed, if I'm using the arm one, I will use this one if the client's particularly got something going on with the shoulder, or got something that is a little bit painful here, or if I can see that they are forward facing or something, because then you can see there's something going on with their shoulders anyway. So then I will use this one. And if you ask them just to raise their arm until they feel tension and they stop there, after the implementation and tap out, you ask them to do that again. They will blow their own minds, because that is now going to give them a huge range of motion without the tension that they didn't have before the session. Are there any questions so far? Because I'm going through this so fast that I think I'm going to get to the end in the next couple of minutes.
With this one, you have them do it one at a time, or both at the same time?
One at a time.
One at a time. And then same thing after the tap out, to do it one at a time again?
Yeah, one at a time again, yeah. Yeah.
So they're really doing each one pretty close back to back. You're just doing the tap out in between them doing it the first time and the second time.
Yeah, that's all you're doing. You're just doing the tap out. So you as they sit down on the bed, so this one will be a little bit before the straight leg raise, because the client's lying down. I do it just before the tap out. This one will pretty much be before we start with the formula, because you don't want them to sit up again and then lie down again. You'd rather keep them under at the end.
So this one, you'd have them do it before you get them on the table, and then
yeah. So when they say, I'll get them to sit first on the bed, and then do that, and then lie down, and then we'll check it again at the end.
Thanks.
Okay, and this one is incredible. This I've seen, because the neck, this is mod 4-7, the neck stores worry. The shoulders, the rhomboids store chronic anger. The shoulders are about responsibility. So people, I mean, I'm sure we all have this, clients that have got neck issues, clients that have got shoulder issues, and all of that. You'll pick that up in the neck flexors almost every single time. And they can feel it, you can see it. And what I would do with this one is I would get them to do the 2 sides this way, and then backwards, forwards. And you will see the difference. They will feel the difference. They will see the difference. And the comments that I've had before are not just about the neck. It's about my shoulders feel better, because it's all connected. Even the tongue has muscles that go all the way down and connect to the coccyx. So when you're doing the forward one, or you're doing that one, you're actually working with those muscles that run all the way down into the coccyx, which is where the tongue actually ends, is in the coccyx. So this one, you're working with a whole host of things here. So like I said, shoulders, neck, upper back, your tongue, the entire, all the facial muscles. I've even had clients tell me after the session, when they did this evaluation that their TMJ felt looser. And we hadn't even really worked with the TMJ, but once the whatever is sitting in the neck has been released, a whole bunch of stuff happens in the face and the shoulders. So this one, you probably see, so the straight leg raise, they feel it, the arms, they feel it, but this one, because it covers so many areas of the fascia, when this is released, this one is probably one of my favorite ones to use because they feel the difference in more than just the neck area. And I think, you see, that's what I said, that's it. So the Q&A on that.
Well, I have a question here, or if you just clarify this.
Mm.
So it doesn't really matter what the formula is about. So the evaluation is just something shifted during the formula. It's like, it doesn't really matter if you're working on things that have nothing to do with the neck or the legs or the shoulders or whatever.
So
You work on somebody's liver, right? You know?
Exactly, because the liver, if you're working with the liver and there's a whole bunch of stuff coming up in the liver, it's not only the liver that would be affected, it would be other places in the body and the fascia, because that will link through to the fascia anyway. So it does go into a lot more detail. So I've used 3 of the most simple ones that can do the least damage, because in the orthopedic evaluation, they go into the hand. If there's an injury, they go into the thumb. It goes all the way down. I mean, if we just have a look, it does the upper body, lower body, extremities. I think in Kerry's manual, there's probably about close on 50 different evaluations. And then it would be a case of, okay, if there is something wrong with your wrist or there is something wrong with the foot, let's do the session. Let's do an agenda session on the foot. Let's do an agenda session on the hand. Let's see if we need to link that to the brain and give it to the brain for the brain to go and do its work, its natural work that it knows it needs to do. So when it comes to that, because it's not intended to diagnose, I use it if there's an injury, but I'm also very careful if there's an injury, because the last thing you want is something to happen while you are evaluating it, and then you land up with something happening. So these 3, it's pretty much the client doing their own work. You are not, a lot of the other ones, we've been trained where to hold, how to pull, how to move, how to do all these things. But these 3, and that's why I chose them specifically, except the leg raise, you using your fingers, but the rest of them is pretty much the client doing it themselves. So you limit your own risk with regards to, oh, but you did this and that's what happened to me because you did that. So that is why I chose those 3. But it does go a lot deeper and a lot broader into the whole body and every piece of it.
So just to like sort of rephrase, so what you're really evaluating is the release of the tension that happens because you did the formula and shifted some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Tension releases, fascia releases, now the body moves better.
Yep.
And that's what we're evaluating.
Pretty much. It's exactly what we're doing. Because the first trauma and emotions, I learned this in fascia release. Trauma and emotions get released from the fascia first. So that's why in my sessions, because I've done the fascia release, I will always start with the fascia release first. So I incorporate that as part of my sessions. Because the fascia covers every organ, endocrine, body part, blood vessel, muscle, if it's tight and full of emotions, it's going to sit like this. So now we're trying to help the body to release something from somewhere. It's not going anywhere. If that fascia is sitting that tight, it'll go somewhere for a bit. So that's why I incorporate the fascia release in my sessions to help the fascia release it, because it is the biggest place where trauma and emotion get stored. Katie.
How do you talk to clients about this? Like, how do you explain to them what's happening or why you want them to lift their arms or why you're doing it? Yeah, how do you frame it for your clients?
So what I will say to them So obviously I've got the health and wellbeing intake form that I've got first. So I will already have a bit of an idea of what is going on with them based on their form. And what I will say to them is, when I'm explaining why I want them to do that, it's because emotions are very heavy for our body, and we carry them in various places. And because if they don't have anything, especially if they don't have anything physically wrong with them, I'll say to them, so because we're dealing with mental or emotional trauma here, you're coming for anxiety, depression, whatever, it's a bit more difficult to have a look at the end of the session what has shifted. So because emotions are so heavy and they sit very heavily in our fascia and all of our organs and endocrines, let's do this so you can see the shifts and how the emotions have become lighter, and you've shifted them in. Did you notice I said you've shifted them? You've shifted them in your session. Now your body actually is showing you that by feeling lighter. So I just explained about emotions being heavy and how your body reacts to emotions. So when we release some of these emotions, obviously not all of them, when you release those, your body is looser, you're able to feel lighter. So that's all I really say. And they're quite happy with that. So,
You know, Katie, that would probably show up just with your straight up therapy too. Because you release, you work, that's exactly what you're working with.
yeah.
I was thinking of that because like the way I do therapy still involves a lot of like, it's like mini mindscape that I do with people of like imagination and somatic stuff. And so I'm like, oh,
Then it'll still shift.
Why not?
We'll get them to do it.
yeah.
And I just kind of want to throw in here too, because I'm doing almost all distance now too. Like, thank you for 2 of those 3. We can do it at distance. So the leg raise, you know, I got to have somebody sitting there, but I can be on Zoom and they can move their neck around. I can be on Zoom, they can do their shoulders. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, it's every, I still blow my own mind when they come, I think we all have it. Sometimes you'll have a session, you're like, I don't know what that was all about, but whatever, you know, it's like, I've had some sessions where at the end I'm going, okay, whatever. And I'll use Vilma's phrase. She goes, just do the session and leave it alone. So that's what I do, leave it alone. But when I see this, I'm like, okay, all right. You did something in your session, client. I don't know what it was, but you did it. So it just works.
Do you use this every time?
No, because if a client walks in and they've got something physically wrong with them already, a headache or a lower back thing or a whatever, then I will ask them, I'll say, rate that for me on a pain scale of 1 to 10 right now as you sit there. And I'll make a note. They'll tell me it's a 6 out of 10. I'll say, okay, we'll check it again at the end of the session. So then I'll use their own ache, pain, tension, discomfort for them to feel that. So it just depends on the client.
So what happens if you get them to rate something like that and it doesn't change by the end of the session?
I've never had it not change.
I have, for sure.
Have
like,
you?
people come with their own reporting, of certain things. Yeah. I mean, obviously other things change, but there are certain things that have, that they might report that they're like, oh, it's about the same. So, yeah, just curious.
But then something else. So if they're saying something's about the same, the best one to use is a straight leg raise. Straight leg raise shifts every time, because think about the size. I mean, your femur is the biggest bone in your body. I mean, the top part of your legs, and your legs are what carry you. Your legs is where a lot of that stuff sits. So if I'm gonna question with it, because I have got some clients that, and you know what, then it's their own shit that they're not shifting. Because I have clients that come back and they'll tell me, oh no, nothing's changed. I'm like, well, we'll do the session, things will start shifting. You got to be, so the straight leg raise, I would use that one because that's you and you can feel it, they will feel it. Yeah.
The other one that Tracy, it's interesting, like I love this idea. I haven't heard of the idea of doing it before and after a single formula. So I'm kind of curious about that, like why the single formula and why not the session as a whole.
Well, I call my session a formula.
Oh, okay. So you're
So my session, it's because the way
it's like one big formula, because mine's usually multiple, like I'm doing multiple formulas.
So mine is one, I'll talk the client through it as I'm going. Mine is one big, and probably the reason that I actually do it that way is because of the way that I sometimes explain to my clients. It's probably because I've got quite a few tech people that come here, as I'll say, we're like a human computer. And I'm the computer programmer, you're the computer, you're doing the work, but I'm the programmer. So the entire session for me is I will build an entire formula. Everything will be incorporated in that entire formula, and then I will do the tap out. Okay. Katie's been to me for a session. She's seen that I actually tap out multiple things in the one. I don't do a tap out and then a tap out. I actually build the whole formula. Mm-hmm. And then I do fascia release and I do the tap out of whatever came up in the formula.
Right.
It's a bit different, but it's just the way that it's evolved. And I think it's also because of the fascia that I don't like to stop and tap out and check again. I'd rather do everything and then do the implementation and tap out.
Right. Well, and then that makes sense with the testing. So it's kind of like, oh, you're doing it between each formula, because then
no, the beginning and the end.
Mm-hmm. The other one that I find that Tracy Clark uses, because she does in her Beyond Technique, I think, class, she also talked about people's balance, so getting them to check if they're leaning like forward or backwards or putting more weight on one foot or the other. And that's also, I find that often changes for people as well. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm also curious, just along a similar line. So I'm pondering like intake forms, because like quite often I end up with so much information about people that I don't refer back to. And so for me, I'm wondering if really I even want to take a full intake form, because it seems like such a lot. And then talking to the client on the first session, it can end up taking quite a long amount of time. So I'm curious to hear from people what they talk about as part of that first intake. Like, do you spend extra time with people? Do you make a shorter session? Because what I'm finding is it's hard sometimes to do a full like intake conversation and then also do a full session within a regular amount of time.
So with mine, I find that the intake form helps me. And let me just talk intake form for a moment. Mm-hmm. That intake form is your consent, and that's why one of the main reasons.
Well, I do get people to sign a consent and take their details, but sometimes I don't know whether I need their full health history. I mean, it can be it's a lot. I'm kind of uncomfortable about holding so much information about people when I'm not HIPAA required, and so anyway.
Okay, yeah. So
I'm kind of
websites and all of that. So but the intake form. So what I will do is I will get the intake form 24 hours before the session. I ask them to send it to me. I'll look at it quickly, and then I tell my clients that their first session is an hour and 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then I do the rest of the sessions are an hour after that. I just feel that it also gives them, well, at number one, I think it gives us a bit of credibility, because you are sitting there and you're actually giving them that platform, that 30 minutes to actually tell you their shit, their story, whatever they want to tell you. And then you do the session. There are times where it's gone over that, and I generally make sure that I'm done in an hour and 30 minutes if the session needs to be shortened or whatever it needs to happen with it. But I generally do that. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, my sessions are already about 75 minutes. So there's still, a pretty chunk of time, 60 to 75 minutes.
I do a lot of talking to the person every time I start a session with like an assessment, but I don't find out every single thing about the entire thing about their life. I find out like, what are we doing?
Yeah, that's
and then I'm listening, and then I'm just feeling for like hits, and I will pursue. So I kind of do it intuitively. I feel like, especially the long intake form is like, wow, what would I ever do with all that information?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I'm the same, and I've got to say, when I go see a new practitioner, I get really pissed off when I have to fill out a whole intake form, because I'm just like, actually, I don't want to give you all this information if I don't even know if you're my practitioner yet.
yeah,
So,
I find it tedious as a person, as a client, like, oh God, yeah. So I sort of resist it. And how does that tie in with orthopedic evaluation? Does it at all? Knowing what, or is it just really that we?
No, it can, because if you see that they've had physical, so I'll give you, let me give you, I had a new client come and see me last week. And she had, and we wouldn't have picked up on information if she didn't fill in the form. She had broken almost every single bone on the left-hand side of her body. And because, like, over a period of time, she'd done this. And I could see that by the way she was standing, and then when I started looking at the movement of it. So having the information on that form, you already, I'm looking, I'm going, okay, let me, because then I will use, because I have the Kerry D'Ambrosio stuff, I might then use one of the other orthopedic evaluation tools that I have to check that specific foot or that specific arm, and then check it again. Or if I see that coming up on the form, I might then at the time know that I need to use intrinsic reciprocals. If instead of using your normal reciprocals, use the intrinsic reciprocals, because that is a different effect on that fascia. So for me, it just, yeah, I use the information a lot. But are you still using the IBA form that you have to physically send and people have to write?
no, I had created one, but it was still quite long, and to my mind, it was still too long for people. So,
But is it still, do they have to write everything?
no, they could type it in. Yeah,
Okay.
but it was, yeah, it was just still long. I mean, by the time you kind of add a lot of questions, I'd be curious to see what yours looks like, Vanessa, if you've got a short one.
It's not really short. Katie,
yeah.
how was it for you? My one.
What's that?
Katie filled one in, because I do that, mate. I'll give you to come to you for a session. I'd make you fill my form in. Katie, oh, there we go. How was it for you, my form?
It was longer than the ones I'd done, because I had, and I told Vanessa I hadn't done an exchange where the practitioner had me like do all the stuff as if I was a normal client. And after experience it, I loved it. So it was like, oh, like, I think it made the session more powerful that I had filled out a form. And so everyone I've done an exchange with since then, I'm like, oh no, I'm putting you, I'm gonna send you like the work calendar invite, and I'm gonna send you like my form if you've never filled it out, which none of my classmate, colleague body talkers have filled it out before, because we were all just like in class together and practicing on each other and then continuing to do exchanges. But so that being said, it was longer than what I was used to, because I was used to not filling anything out. But then filling it out, it didn't feel longer than any other intake form that I've filled out if I'm going to see like an acupuncturist or a therapist or physical therapy. Yeah,
it's pretty much a click through. It's online.
It's all Google Forms. Yeah,
Microsoft Forms. It's
or
all
Microsoft Forms.
Yeah, just done. Click the box if you've experienced this. Tick here, do that. So that's can't hear you.
It probably makes a difference too if you have the online form. I think that's often easier, and then people have, mine's one where they would have to type in.
Yeah. So there are a few typing boxes, but most of it is a selection box. I'll send it to you. You can have a look at it. I'll just send you the link, and you can have a look at it and see what it looks like.
Thank you. It's probably easier to store online too.
Oh yeah, it is. So then, and that was the whole thing, right? Because then with my website, I had to be compliant with all the privacy information and whatever. whatever they call it here, I don't know, but I had legal advice from there because I had to do it in South Africa with the privacy policy. So I did it on there and they said, no, as long as you are the only one who can access the forms and they're on your computer, you're fine. So that's why the online form, I've got folders where I've got all my client forms stored and I'm the only one with the password to my PC. So.
Well, that's good to know that covers it.
It does.
Because you're not technically HIPAA. So.
Yeah. So if you've done that, then you're fine. If they had to check you, you'd be fine.
Vanessa, can you add another question about the evaluations and just so I heard you say that you don't do it every time. Like if a client already comes in with a specific physical complaint, you focus in on that in terms of like self-rating, pain and discomfort. So for the clients who don't have a physical complaint and you're going to do an evaluation, how do you pick which one? Or do you do all of these ever, or do you usually just do one of them?
So I base that on that mindscape in the beginning, before they even come. So when I get their form and I mindscape them, when they come in to my mindscape, I will straight away look and go, oh, because the neck will be like this in the mindscape, or I'll see their like shoulders a bit like this, then I'll use the arm one. Or I can see, you know, if they come in and they're standing a bit like skewed, I can see it's the legs, then I'll focus on the legs. So that's why I use that. And it's a quick mindscape. I don't sit there and do like a whole, you know, so I don't know if any of you have done advanced mindscape. So with the advanced mindscape or beyond right brain, which is Dale's one, you install, so you don't have to go through the whole colors, steps, numbers to get into your workshop. You install an activator. So you can drop into your workshop at like, so I use the activator and I drop in, go to my lift, call in my client, and literally they come in, I go, make a note, and then I send them out, and then they come in. So because of that, it's very quick for me, but that's how I decide. So before they even come here, I'm already going, okay, and I would have seen on the form if they've got any physical stuff going on. If they've got physical stuff going on, I still mindscape them, but I don't pick I'll wait to hear what their pain level is first. And then I will decide from there. But generally, I will do that in mindscape.
Well, it looks like we did it.
Looks like we did.
I'm really excited to try these. Thank you, Vanessa.
Definitely. And it's just a good reminder, because sometimes I will be like, oh, I should have asked in the beginning, you know. Do you feel better now? Do you remember how you felt before?
So because we all BodyTalk practitioners here, I'll tell you, and I was taught this by my first fundamentals, and I've only ever done it. Did I do it with you, Katie? I did.
Where we forgot,
and I went back
after. And I was like, wait, can you, oh, I really want to try it to see what it felt like to do the evaluations. And then you were like, all right, I wouldn't do this with a normal client, but
I went like, so Taryn Edge was my first fundamentals instructor, and I certified with her as well. And she taught us, but not to use it with other clients, because you'll freak them out and be out the door, because there is no such thing as space and time. And if you look at body ecology, you work in vertical time. So I literally, with Katie, I said, oh, you forgot. I said, okay, close your eyes. Let's go back to 2 minutes before the session. And then I did the evaluation. So I said, okay, let's go back to after the session times 10,000 fold. Redid it, and her leg. So I did. But I wouldn't do it with any normal client, because they would look at you like, oh,
so it was like a 10-second. It was like the first time, you know, she was like, all right, before the tap out. And then of course she'd already tapped me out, but then she did this, and it was like heavy. And then she's like, all right, now after the tap out, and I was like, what?
Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do it with a normal client, because they would have them come and fetch me in white coats here. So I wouldn't do that, but it works. Yeah.
It was really cool. It was a hoot. It's like, oh my gosh, right. This is really cool stuff.
Yeah, there's the quantum physics side, and that's how I got my family to believe in the whole is I used orthopedic evaluation. I was like, okay, come, let me see. I'll do a session for you and we'll do this at the end. I won't do it straight away, we'll do it at the end. Yeah, so just a bit of fun. Fun with people who understand what we're actually doing and don't think that we're crazy.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Yeah, this is going to be cool. I'm definitely going to play with this for sure. Definitely going to take advantage of this. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'll stop the recording. Bye, recording.